Okay, this thing says we're live, so I'm gonna assume that it's working. I'm gonna first spend the first couple of minutes awkwardly checking all the different platforms to make sure that it is in fact working, and then I will start. You'll notice that I'm not alone. I've got Dr. Anthony Balduzzi here from the Fit Father Project. What's up?
What's up, dude? Well, I mean, while you're awkwardly doing that, I want to actually just shower you with a little bit of love. This is how I was intending to start this. In my online business journey, teaching people health and fitness for over a decade now, meeting you and developing our friendship is one of the highlight pinnacle experiences. Like, our backstory is funny. Dean and I were independently building our YouTube followings, building our businesses, and he sent me a message. It might have been like 3, 4, even 5 years ago now. He sent me a message like, "Hey, we should be friends." And I like totally missed it. Like one of those things, just like I think I ghosted him for like an entire year. You know, one of those things where you just don't check your messages. Life gets busy. And then I found it and I'm like, whoa, this guy, Dean, like he looks super cool. I want to be friends with him. And it kind of feels fateful how we met and connected. And, you know, if you're a follower of Dean's, you know how amazing of a guy this is. Talk about someone who has that unique combination of all of the wisdom, all of the heart, the consistency. He's beautiful. Like he's just got all of these elements. And I'm so privileged to be his friend and to create with him. And today to serve you guys with our joint knowledge. We have a lot of cool topics that we prepared for this live stream to teach you about the combinations between yoga and strength training, talking about recovery, talking about nutrition and our thoughts on the different eating plans that people are doing today, how to improve your cognitive fitness, different types of health hacks that Dean and I do on a regular basis. This will be a really informative live stream. And the last thing I'll say before we get into our first topic is Dean and I are collaborating like all the time together. We both host a series of live in-person retreats that we'll throw links in the comments in the chat that you can check out if you ever want to come to a Fit Father retreat or a Manflow retreat. But also this summer, August of 2025, the Fit Father community is hosting its first conference called Fit Father Live. You can go to fitfatherproject.com/2025. And Dean and someone on Dean's team will also drop in a link for Dean's special link. But Dean is going to be one of our featured presenters and speakers. He's going to be doing live yoga workouts for us, teaching us how to move our bodies. We're going to have world-class doctors there, healthy food, health vendors with cold plunges and saunas. It's going to be 3 days action-packed to help you improve your health and come deeper into community with Manflow and Fit Father. So I highly recommend you check that out, especially if you're, you know, in the flow with Dean or I, and you want to come deeper into community and take your health to the next level. That's the spot. So that's my preamble, Dean. What do you got?
I mean, that was great. You said everything. So
Okay.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's been great. You know, I tell Anthony this all the time. I call him Anthony. You guys can call him Dr. A if you want. But you know, it's really cool being able to have someone who goes through very similar life experiences. So, you know, I think we didn't actually meet in person for a long time, but we texted a lot, and then we spent a lot of time together. We've had some experiences together. So yeah, it's been a cool relationship. And it's been a great way to kind of demonstrate a lot of what I try to talk about beyond the wealth, beyond the realm of just physical fitness, right? Because connections are very important. And so it's been a great example of, hey, this is what a great relationship could be like. So
I agree. And Dean, I want to say one thing on that, because I think this is actually a relevant kind of philosophical note to kick us off before we get right into the tactical stuff. Like health gives us energy and a positive mood and mindset that enables us to go throughout our days and actually just attract better people into our lives. Like health creates, I think, like a little bit of resonance. Like you see someone and they have that glow because they're eating right, because they're exercising consistently. They have like energy pouring off them, and they're a positive person to be around. And so part of our work here is to get ourselves healthy, but then to collide and create with other people who are healthy. So find your tribe, go deeper with those people. Like that's what this whole life experience is all about. It's about people and community. And I think as we move into like this AI, robotics, crazy world that we're moving into, like friendships, being healthy together is what it's all about. So on that note, Dean, let's talk about some stuff and share some value. Go ahead, kick us off.
All right. So we have 10 areas that we actually met before this. We're not just We're not just throwing this. We're not just doing this without any script whatsoever. We met before this. We came up with 10 topics that we felt were things that would be really helpful to break down. We had a lot of fun trying to come up with the title. Eventually, we landed on 10 areas of holistic health because, Dr. A's big folk. I think what really sets you apart is weight loss, right? That's the big goal. But really, what all of this stuff is that we're doing right now is it's holistic health. It's all the things, and
Mhm.
so we wanted to start with some topics that we both get questions a lot just within within Manful Yoga, but also Fit Father Project. There's a lot of guys who are overlapping through these communities. And one of the big questions we get is, okay, well, why yoga, right? Maybe why should we, because I've got these strength training workouts that I have to do, or I've got these other workouts that I like doing. And now you're telling me that I have to find time to do yoga,
Mhm.
So I think getting into some of reasons why yoga can be helpful for your physical fitness beyond the, oh, well, yoga doesn't burn that many calories. But if we go a little bit deeper, that's when it starts to get interesting.
So, Dean, make the case yoga for someone who's looking to lose weight. Why do you believe it's so fundamental and should be a key part of the plan?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I think there's first off is that yoga is a really good way for you to exercise in a way that is low impact and no impact. And if you're a guy who's, let's say, 20, 25, 50, 100 plus pounds overweight, going out and going for a run, if you haven't exercised in a long time, is a really, really great way to destroy your knees and make you never want to exercise again. So when we look at yoga as a way to help you build a solid foundation of strength for you to not only to build muscle, but actually to help you develop muscle awareness, to help you develop
Mhm.
stronger joints. It's basically laying the foundation of your fitness. So it's a
Mhm.
great way for you to build a solid foundation of strength, of flexibility, of body control that you
Mhm.
can then build on top of. I think
Yes.
especially because most of us are spending a lot of time sitting down in chairs, right? We're not very active. So not only are you fighting against, the additional weight that you have on, or maybe a lack of health, but there's also the all this time that you spend sitting is going to make sure that you don't have core strength, you have a lack of hip flexibility, you have a lack of shoulder flexibility, you
Mhm.
have a lack of spinal mobility. And when you take that into exercise, you're going to have a lot of problems. It's going to be very
Mhm.
difficult for you to do just basic workouts. And so, what we do with yoga is we help you build those essentials. We help you basically undo the negative effects of sitting in a chair. So first off, it's just from this practical standpoint of yes,
Mhm.
great workout to help you build a solid foundation of fitness. Also to undo, the negative effects of sitting throughout the day. But
Mhm.
then we really get into some of the indirect benefits, right? So the indirect benefits of doing yoga consistently, we are less stressed. We get to check in with our breathing. We get to
Mhm.
build body awareness. We start sleeping better. And
Mhm.
when you look at those benefits, those are, I, I mean, those might even outweigh the benefits of the exercise benefits. When
Mhm.
you're less stressed, right? Most of us are overweight because we have a poor relationship with food. We eat
Mhm.
food because it helps to relieve stress.
For sure.
Um, if you're overweight, you're going to have difficulty sleeping. So if we look at kind of all these different indirect benefits of yoga, like all these things that are going to help you with stress, things that are going to help you be more aware of your body, which allows you to check in and say, well, am I really hungry or am I stressed? Most of us
Mhm.
don't have some sort of mindfulness or stillness practice that allows us to be able to check in, to have that awareness. And so when you start to do yoga, you start to develop this awareness. You start to develop this ability to be present, to be able to check in with your body and ask what it needs and recognize what it's telling you. And this helps with, again, all the indirect aspects of wellness, not just the physical fitness, but the stress, the
Yeah.
sleep, the asking yourself what you need. And that's where I think yoga is even more beneficial for weight loss.
And I was to plus on that, and we're going to get into the specific schedule of like how many times we recommend you might program something like a cardio workout versus a yoga workout for strength training. Like I imagine just doing yoga, like even just once a week in your schedule and your programming, if you're looking to lose weight, would have such a massive carry on benefit. And it's something that you could stack with a little bit of time outside. Summer's around the corner, get some sunshine, do some of these core basic stretches. It's also going to help you figure out those areas of your body that are uniquely tight for you. And you figure out, oh, I actually need to just really work on opening my hips, or I need more shoulder mobility. You can start to just weave those kinds of motions in throughout your day. But if you're not doing any yoga, you're not going to discover this stuff. So that's essential. Now, Dean, to pivot a little bit for the guys who are maybe at a good weight, what's the case for yoga on why that can help on the muscle building side of things?
Yeah, so when you're 20, it's not as much of an issue. It's just not. You can usually get through things. Usually those little aches and pains, you're like, whatever. Shoulders hurt a little bit. I'll just keep working out. As you get into your 30s, suddenly, oh, this hurts a little bit more than it used to. I can still work out, but now I have to take more breaks than I want to. Now we're in our 40s. Now we're in our 50s. Now we're in our 60s. And now we can't get away with things that we used to. We cannot get away with ignoring little aches and pains. And the source of those little aches and pains is a lack of flexibility. It's a lack of essential core strength. It is a lack of muscle awareness and strength in commonly weak areas. So what yoga does is it helps to plug the gaps. It helps to plug the gaps of your fitness. Most people who don't do yoga and then start doing yoga, who are also working out already, the big results that they notice are they have a lot less soreness in their back suddenly because they're actually using their core and their hips. They feel muscles working that they didn't know they had before. A lot of guys will do lower body exercises,
Yeah.
but their glutes don't get sore. And suddenly they do yoga, they start practicing getting their glutes engaged, and then they go do deadlifts, they do squats, and the next day they're like, holy crap, my glutes are sore. Like, yeah, dude,
Yeah.
we got your glutes working for the first time in 10 years. So it's going to help you be more efficient with your body. It's going to plug the gaps of your fitness. And ultimately, you are going to be able to recover better from your workouts,
Yes.
but you're also going to feel better in your workouts. I think that's the biggest thing. I think so many people exercise and they're like, oh, it just hurts. And that's just what exercise is. But when you start to plug those gaps and make your body more efficient, exercise doesn't hurt anymore. It's still uncomfortable because you're pushing yourself, but now you're going, you're doing 10 reps of an exercise and you're not just hoping to get to the end so you can finish. You're actually feeling the muscles engaged. You're like, oh, this feels good. I feel strong. I feel capable. So that's the case for doing yoga if you're already doing strength training, because it's going to make you better. It's going to hurt less, and you're going to be able to do it for longer into your 50s, your 60s, your 70s.
100%. And also, like when we're training, the interesting thing about strength training is always looking to push your edge, like knowing how much you can do in that exercise and trying to beat it for reps or beat it for weight. So inevitably you're pushing your body to that place where you could potentially be injured, and yoga just makes you so much more resilient there. Also, like a big part of like maturity in your training is paying attention to your body and knowing when you need to take time off, like knowing when you need to take those deload weeks. And so, Dean, I know you and I have, like, especially recently, young kids, big businesses, lots of travel. Like, man, over the last like month and a half, I've taken like multiple weeks off. That doesn't mean I'm doing nothing. I'm still doing some rucking. I'm still doing some yoga type motions, but like these kinds of yoga workouts are such a great tool that can continue your movement while also taking a little bit of time off. It's like active recovery, which is so phenomenal. And then one other like aesthetic benefit that I don't think people appreciate too much is when you're trying to like bodybuild and really create a good looking body, it's pretty easy to work the really big muscles, like to hit the quads or leg extensions or squats. But like to work those smaller muscles around the scapula, the upper back, like a lot of guys like don't have that. And Dean, if anyone's watched your workouts, like you have an awesome back. And it's not just because you do pull-ups or rows, but you do all this crazy yoga stuff with external rotation and moving the scapula through big range of motion. You get to actually like, I hate the word sculpt, but it is kind of true. You activate these small muscles and you get a lot of volume in them that you wouldn't get otherwise if you were just doing like big compound motions. So there's a big aesthetic benefit to it as well.
Yeah. And I do all that stuff because I've been down the other route where everything hurts. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. So, selfishly, I like yoga because it makes my body feel good. And I just want to be able to continue to feel good. So
Now,
that's why I like other people doing it.
Where this is like probably one of my favorite topics here. We're going to talk about how to weave yoga in with a schedule. And
Yeah.
I think schedule is everything. Like in today, we have so many demands. It's really about everyone finding their own unique process and system and schedule that works for them. And there's literally a couple baseline strategies of how you can think about incorporating this. So I'll do a little preamble, share some of my thoughts, and then Dean, you chime in too, please. There's the idea
Yeah.
of you can think in terms of like blocks, if that's how you like to think, where you have a yoga day, you have a strength training day, you have a high intensity cardio day. So that might be 3. And then if your goal is to maximize one of those things, to get better yoga, to get better strength, to get better cardio, you'd add one more of those days. So now we have a bias towards one main goal, but you're getting a little bit of everything. So that's one way to think about it, but it doesn't have to be that way. You could also have your regular workouts that you're doing, a strength training workout or a HIIT workout or a Fit Father metabolic resistance training circuit, and start it with yoga. Like yoga could be your warm up or your cool down. So now you're actually taking that same unit of workout and now stacking it a little bit longer, extending that training time. But now every session itself has a wider variety of stimulus too. So that might work well for somebody. Other people who are really down for morning routines or like to do something a little different on the weekend that feels like it's like me time, like that's just a phenomenal way to like deploy yoga or movement in any day you have a more spacious morning. Like if we took everyone and we went outside right now and we had like a couple hours to go like be in the sun, drink some good water and do some yoga type motions, we'd all feel so much better. So using it as a weekend restoration, something different, getting outside is also great. In terms of like training, what I've learned is that it's typically a good idea to get at least 2 big stimulus to your muscles. If you look jacked and feel strong, 2 times a week, you're hitting your muscles pretty damn hard. So that means like a strength training workout. And then 3 days later, you're doing another type of strength training workout, or it could be a really hard man flow yoga session that's like very muscular, a lot of longer holds, stuff like that. And then in those off days, you can just fill in the gap with like long walks, cardio sessions, lighter, more restorative yoga. But yeah, I like to think in my mind of like big pulses of what my main goal is. And again, if my goal was switching up to be cardio, I do 2 big cardio pulses and then fill in the gaps with the other stuff. So I'll start there. Dean, give me your reflections on that.
I love that you mentioned the yoga as a warm-up option. I think I think there's a lot of misinformation. A lot of people will quote that like, well, doing yoga decreases your performance. To which I respond like, how many of you are like pitching for,
Right.
the MLB right now?
Right.
How many of you like need 90, need 100% of your performance? What's probably much more important is that you're able to exercise without pain and
Mm-hmm.
that you're able to exercise in a way that minimizes your risk of injury. So absolutely do the warm up. And yeah, if you were just doing passive stretching, that would be, that would be helpful, but maybe not the most effective warm up. But what we're doing with manful yoga is mostly isometrics. You're mostly
Mm-hmm.
just doing a lot of muscle activation work. You're
Yes.
doing active mobility work, which is going to make your body more efficient for exercise. So I really like it as a warm up because not only is it a way to combine 2 workouts together, but also it's cool because you can do the warm up, you can do the exercises that are going to help make your problem areas better. So let's say
Right.
you have knee pain when you exercise, let's say you have shoulder pain when you exercise. You can do yoga as a warm up, focus on those areas, and you actually make you make those body parts, they'll just feel better. It's
Yep.
it's almost like it's doing your rehab, but then it's taking the rehab that you just did, and now your muscles are primed so that when you do the workout itself, you're actually, addressing those problem areas instead of, if you don't do a warm up, what usually happens is you just go into the muscles that you already know how to work, you already, are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And the result is that you're just continuing to contribute to imbalances, whereas
Yes.
doing yoga beforehand will fix those imbalances. So I love yoga as a warm up. I pretty much recommend that to all of my one-on-one people that I work
Yeah.
with. Like, we all do some sort of yoga warm up.
Dean, let
It's
me
just
ping on
so
this.
helpful.
I want to talk about pain for a second. I would say that this is a ballpark, not like a hardline figure, but I would say around 60 to maybe even 70% of pain patterns that people have is has a component of muscular inhibition. So a lot of people
Mm,
who say like I have a bad knee, like what has happened in that, however it originated, is there are a concert of muscles, quad muscles, hamstring muscles, a lot of other things that are working in tandem to help that knee track properly. And when you have pain and an injury, you get neurologic inhibition. Some of those muscles start to shut off, not track properly, not move properly. The body gets into a protective mode. Then other muscles have to overcompensate to produce the amount of force. which then typically has some kind of zigzag pattern to another area of your body. And then you get this complex symphony of some kind of zigzag pain pattern that started with one muscle that was not activated because there was some protective pain pattern. The cool thing about these isometrics that Manflow is kind of based off of is you get everything working and creating tension in harmony, which actually retrains the brain to say, oh, this is safe, and actually allows you to produce more force. And, there's many great rehab stuff that you can find online through the Manflow routines or other people you might follow on YouTube. The crux of it all right now is a lot of these rehab exercises are actually just strength exercises that are getting the muscle to fire. So it's a great idea before any kind of workout that you do this type of stuff and you get your muscles firing properly. If you know that you have any muscle that is like, man, that just is not activating, or that looks a little floppy, or, you notice that, then working that on a daily basis is going to change your life.
Yeah. And starting with like some sort of yoga session or some sort of these isometrics that actually allow you to learn that about yourself is what's awesome too. So specifically addressing this question here, scheduling yoga. So it's a really simple way, right? Dr. A talked about one way. My way, use it as a warm up, and then you can just alternate days, right? So day 1, day 3, day 5, you do 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes of yoga. You do 30 to 40 minutes of some strength training or some cardio. And then on days 2, 4, and 6, you do yoga. If you feel more energetic, you can do a more intense yoga session. If you're feeling less energetic, maybe you didn't sleep as well, maybe you're really tired from your other workout, you do a bit more restorative session. So you have a lot of choices with yoga. It's not just one way or the other. There's like a whole spectrum of intensity that you can use. We break that down really well in our library, but you could do a super intense, version of yoga where it's really hard, almost like a strength training workout, or you could do a really, really relaxed session where it's really focused on releasing tension, more passive stretching, and a lot of breathing.
And
So, but that's the
feeling,
easiest way.
anytime you're feeling bored with your training, you're just not inspired anymore to do the kind of training you've been doing, these yoga workouts and getting into more bodyweight stuff is almost always the key to reactivating. And 2 final thoughts I want to share before we move on to talking about recovery. What we know about like muscle building now, and we've learned quite a bit, particularly in the last few years, is that the stimulus that causes muscles to grow is creating tension in a lengthened position. So imagine I'm doing like a chest fly and I'm totally opened up like this, but I also can create a lot of tension somehow safely in this position. This is what actually causes those motor units to stretch. It causes some of the tearing, but it causes just the body to be like, oh shit, I need to be strong in a lengthened position. So where I'm going with this is there's training techniques if your goal is to build muscle, where after a workout, let's say you did work the chest, where you could do some more like yin yoga or like long holds, stretching that exact body part that you worked at the end of a workout that can really accentuate that exercise process. In fact, there are some training techniques that involve weighted stretching at the end of big sets to really create that effect. So, and that's also another plug for full range of motion. If you have pain patterns, can't do full range of motion, yoga can help you get there. Now, next topic, Dean, we want to talk about recovery. Like, recovery becomes increasingly more important as we get older. And we're going to talk about it from the lens of like how you personally, Dean, and how I personally make recovery a part of our daily lives. Like, what do you actually do? Do you foam roll? Do you ice plunge? How do you do it on a daily basis? How do you think about recovery and how do you make it practical?
Yeah, so this is something that I do a lot in my one-on-one conversations with people, but basically we try to identify where is there time in your schedule, maybe some time that you don't know about or other activities that already exist that you could also do some recovery work. So you and I talked about this beforehand, but we came up with this. I don't know if we invented this term, but I like it. It's this idea of booby trapping your home. Right. So it's just like it's putting like little tools throughout your house so that you can kind of weave them into your life in a way that, your life is already set up. So we don't want to have to come into your existing habits and just blow them all up and create new ones. Realistically, what we want to do and what's going to make it sustainable and long term is you look at what you're already doing and you figure out, okay, how can I fit this in with what I'm already doing? One of the easiest ways to do that is to just have a foam roller visible wherever you watch TV. Most of us watch TV, right? There's some of us who maybe don't watch TV, but the reality is that most of us watch TV. We probably have partners who watch TV, right? So even if we don't want to, we've got our other half who is, watching some terrible show on Netflix and we're like, okay, fine. We will watch it with you. So putting a foam roller on the ground, one thing that I love doing, I foam roll pretty much the night after I do any sort of lifting session,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel so much better the day afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like my recovery is just so much better because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing that I like to do is I like to sit on the floor as much as possible. So I
Me too.
usually sit against a couch. If I need a little bit of support, if I'm feeling a little bit more mobile through my hips, I can sit away from the couch. But just getting comfortable being on the floor. And there's tons of different positions that you can be in when you're on the floor. You can sit in kind of like a 90-90 position. You could do a low lunge. You could sit in with your toes tucked in a kneeling position. So there's tons of different little mobility exercises that you can do when you're sitting on the floor that you really can't do while you're sitting on a couch. And for me, I've just done that enough where I know that my body feels better when I'm on the floor. So that's something that I like to do. As far as cold plunge and sauna go, I love cold plunging. I love sauna. It's getting hotter in here in Texas right now. So I've drained my cold plunge a couple months ago, but planning on getting back into that. 3 times a week for me, I feel like is the good amount for that. I was trying to do it every day, and I noticed that I would just get, excessively tired, especially doing it the same day that I worked out, like
Yeah.
lifted. It was difficult. And then if I can do a sauna once a week, I love doing sauna. I do have an infrared sauna in my house. I'm very fortunate to have that. The same benefits that I notice when I go for a hike, I kind of also notice when I do the sauna. And the best way to make that efficient is to do the sauna after a workout because you're already nice and sweaty. Whereas if you go into the sauna and you haven't worked up any sort of sweat at all, it takes a lot longer. So
Yeah.
those are probably the big things that I like doing and the way that I try to integrate it into my life. But
I
what about
resonate.
you?
I resonate with all that. Back on the booby trapping, like
Yeah.
one thing I also do is I keep, those small little balls are kind of like lacrosse ball type things. You can get formal ones from a company like Rad Roller or whatever. I keep them in my
Yeah.
car. So like I even just
Mm,
like put it right behind my back when I'm in there, and like I work a little bit of that scapula. That's an area that sometimes I get a little tight. So it's an idea you can booby trap basically anywhere. Um, Cold plunging is cool for sure. I'm a fan of doing it pre-workout, like when I really want to get that extra surge. That's great.
mm,
And another thing I noticed too, and a lot of my friends who are busy as well, entrepreneurs, high performance kind of people, is making like whenever you have a weekend day where you don't have something scheduled, do like a self-care day at home. So like, okay, you didn't do a great job throughout the whole week of like doing your foam rolling. And even though it was there, you didn't do it. Even just doing a big bolus of it, like once over the weekend where you set aside a couple hours, you take a long walk, you do 30 minutes of foam rolling while listening to something. And then if you have access to a sauna or something, or you take a warm bath, which I take very often, you can just do like a self-care day. That goes a long way whenever you have a couple hours, and it feels very spacious. It feels really good. I take magnesium baths often, a couple times a week. I just find like the warm water is so relaxing. And I also want to say too, like one of the best ways you can possibly recover is to start taking more walks. Even like rucking, like if your legs are sore, we know some of the best ways to recover your legs are actually to do just some like really light, low intensity cardio. Just get blood
mhm.
flow, get that moving. Upper body is like probably a little more challenging if your chest is super fried. Like, what are you going to do there? But maybe shoulder circles. Or maybe you get in some water and you have the ability to swim a little bit if you have the ability in the summer. But these are some ideas. I think booby trapping the home is very good. Get a foam roller, get some of those small balls, put it everywhere. Especially when you're traveling. I don't know if anyone else gets a little stressed, a little tight when you're traveling. I almost always have one of those things on the plane with me. It's really easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Love that.
Next topic. So, Dean, this is something that you're really passionate about. You are inside our Fit Father program groups and communities, as well as ManFlow. And you see
Yeah.
a lot of people say, hey, I have a shoulder injury. What is a modification I can do for that? Or how do I avoid that? And
Yeah.
it's something that grinds your gears a little bit because you find it to be at its deepest level, not the truest approach. So speak
Yeah.
into how we look at injuries and how we might approach it from a mindset perspective, as opposed to not just avoiding things, but actually looking to fix them.
Yeah. So if you have recurring pain or chronic pain, or there are certain exercises that you just avoid entirely, it's a good idea to look at those things as opportunities. If we can look at our weaknesses as opportunities to get stronger, then shifting that mindset is going to help you not only address some of the underlying causes of that pain. But it's also going to open up this whole new world of exercise to you. You know, there's a lot of people. We all go through injuries, right? We're all going to have injuries at some point. We're all going to have to. We're all going to have to adapt to limitations in our abilities. And if you're looking at that as, oh, I can't do this, now I can't do this, now I can't do this, but instead you look at those things like, oh, here's something that I can do, here's something that I can do, here's something that I can also work on. You just need to figure out what are the appropriate exercises to address the underlying causes. So, like you were saying, the things that when I see those comments in the community that grinds my gears, it's the, how do I avoid shoulder? I've got bad shoulders. What's a modification for this? I'm like, well, the modification could be you fix the shoulder issue that's presenting itself when you do that. So, and a lot of these things are very common. They're very common weaknesses that most guys have. I feel like,
Hmm.
it's a lack of overhead mobility to get your arms
Yep.
overhead. It's a lack of, there's a lack of spinal mobility. There's a lack of thoracic rotation,
Yeah.
ability to turn from side to side. It's a lack of core strength that
Yes.
causes lower back pain or anterior pelvic tilt.
Yes.
It's a lack of hip strength and ankle mobility that causes knee pain. So all these things are things that you're going to work on with pretty much any well-rounded Manful Yoga workout, or
Yes.
any sort of well-rounded full body mobility practice. And so my thing here is, instead of saying, okay, how do we avoid the pain? It's, hey, what can we do to fix the pain? Obviously, some specialized knowledge that are required. It does,
Mhm.
you might have to figure out what it is. But eventually that pain is just going to keep spreading, right?
Mhm.
You might not be able to do something, just one thing right now, but if you continue to ignore it, it's going to creep into other exercises as well, to the point where you'll get, one day you'll just get to like, oh crap, I really just can't do anything with my shoulders.
Totally.
So
Yeah, and I
being
mean,
proactive
to
there.
drive that home, if you have pain in a joint, there is probably one or two key exercises that if we had you perform it, you would be super weak at. And if you got strong at that exercise gradually from like a physical therapy type approach, which is woven into the Manflow workouts, your pain would get substantially better, if not resolved. So like shoulder pain, a lot of people have like weak external rotation, weak scapular rotation, not a good ability to protract and go overhead with the scapula. You start training that, your whole shoulder changes. So like pain is often due to weakness. You preach this, Dean, as good as anybody. And I just want to bring that to people's awareness. Yeah, you can fix the pain by addressing weakness. And I want to zone in on the spine really fast, not spend a ton of time here, but like my understanding of the body is like we have this central axis that is the spine, through which our brain, our central nervous system, all the nerves innervate our muscles, and the spine compresses as we age. It's a part of getting older. So a huge part of staying mobile is actually to keep this central processing unit being as open and as fluid and the least compressed as possible. So I just want to make a big statement that if you do not currently have some kind of hanging practice in your life, meaning inversion, hanging from your lower body, the ankles and hips, or simply hanging from a pull-up bar, like that could be a huge gain for you. Like 1 or 2 minutes of hanging from either way can change the game for your spine. And it's really easy, but you have to booby trap your home. Guess what I have over here? I have an inversion table. I have a pull-up bar over there. I have a pull-up bar in my bedroom. I actually don't do pull-ups on those damn things. I just hang from them occasionally. Oh, I see it. Hang for a minute. Like these small little things do definitely add up. And I just want to say hang is just general good health advice for shoulders and for spine.
Yeah, great tips. Should we talk about get into nutrition and
Yeah, let's
fad
talk about it.
diets and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, let me do a preamble on this one. So it's like it's a pretty confusing time right now to be a human online. Um, It is, right? I mean, especially with nutrition, like there's so much different
Uh,
advice. And the reason there's so much different advice is because our bodies, like biochemically, although we're all human, we have some pretty substantial differences. Like some people feel really good eating a super low carb, maybe even completely carnivore style eating plan. Some people feel super good eating just like mostly fruit and plant-based proteins. And if we took all those people and actually ran their whole genome sequencing and we looked at different factors in their lives, like they would have distinct differences that make those things so good for them. But we live in these ideas where we're not able to see each other with that amount of transparency. So we have camps of people that are shouting and screaming that this is the way. And you and I are more balanced in our approach than I think most people online. We take a little bit of everything from all these different camps. Like we eat the best kind of animal foods that feel good for us, but we're not afraid of fruit. And we eat our vegetables. And we also have kids. So that means, mac and cheese is flowing through
Mac
the
and
house
cheese.
occasionally. You know what I mean? So like we had mac and cheese with my daughter Brooke last night. So we have like a realistic kind of balanced approach. But that's my preamble, Dean. So I'd love for you to just kind of talk about what you see online with internet nutrition advice, what you think are like some more first principles or stuff that you actually care about, and you would want people to like really nail. And then I'll give my take on that. And then the rest of this, we're going to move into some really cool stuff on like brain and cognitive fitness, some cool health tech stuff, and then, some mental health stuff as well, which is a huge part of this. So Dean, let's talk about nutrition.
Yeah, so I think it's great that there are so many different ideas that are circulating in the sense that you can look at all these ideas and you can actually try them out
Mm-hmm.
and see for yourself what works. I do think that the best approach is finding what works for you and what's works specifically for your body. I mean, I've talked about this. I think whenever you and I get together to do some sort of live event, I talk about this, but one of the best resources that you have for your nutrition is your response to what happens when you eat the food.
Mm-hmm.
So if you eat something and you feel good afterwards, or if you feel sated but you
Mm-hmm.
still feel energetic, hey, that's something that's probably good for you. If you
Mm-hmm.
eat something that maybe it works really well for somebody else, but you eat it and you get super tired afterwards,
Yep.
that's something that you probably should only be eating in moderation from, I don't know, moderation from time to time, or not at all. So I think the one of the most helpful things that you could do is just to start experimenting and figure out what works well for you. And then also recognizing that what you eat, that the symptoms of whatever you eat might not actually present for I think what, 1, 2, maybe even 3 days. How long, what's the longest time that could take
It
to?
depends. I mean, these things, there's low level inflammation and gut stuff that can present a lot longer. Yeah, it's tough to say.
Mhm.
I think that the food responses are good and like noticeable enough within 12 hours of eating it that you should have a pretty good gauge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So within 12 hours, but I've got people who, I just had a guy email me a couple days ago asking for help with nutrition. And there's, I think I really liked history growing up. I'll explain it like this. I really liked history. I loved reading World War II books. And one of the things that I think it's Ryan Holiday who recommends it. He's a stoic guy,
Mhm.
but he recommends that instead of consuming news from day to day, you should go out and you should get a book and read a book, because you're able to see a much more you're able to see the beginning, middle, and end of something. Whereas if you're following the news, you're just going to get, things as they're happening. It's going to be inflated, right? Might not necessarily be accurate. And
Mhm.
I take that same approach to learning more about nutrition. So I would say if you really want to learn more about nutrition, then go find a book that has, a lot of great reviews. So I'm thinking like the Whole Foods 30 diet, or like the Primal Blueprint from Mark Sisson. Or even, I actually like Tim Ferriss's book, 5 Hour Chef. I thought was really good.
Mhm.
So find these books that have more complete guides to nutrition, and then start trying out different things from those. Again, listening to your body's response, and then seeing if that works for you. So
Mhm.
that'd be my take.
And I want to put a couple other things in context. Like a lot of the advice that's happening online right now from people who are in the super low carb keto camp, which will define like a ketogenic diet. People are trying to get under 50 grams of carbs per day, sometimes under 30. But when you get a little more relaxed, maybe under 100. Um, they're helping people fix the greatest problem that's happening to the health of Americans right now, which is metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, high blood sugar. So when you're looking at fixing someone who has been unhealthy for a long time, they're overweight, their blood sugar is dysregulated, their cells are resistant to insulin, getting the carbs out and going low carb is paired with exercise is probably one of the greatest solutions to help correct that insulin sensitivity. This is why things like fasting improves insulin sensitivity. Strength training improves insulin sensitivity. Healthy food does as well. Once you become insulin sensitive, you can eat more carbs and you don't have to be on an insanely restrictive carb plan. So it's like some of these things are tactical approaches that work and meet you at different phases of your metabolic health. Like I don't eat like oatmeal per se. but I could eat a gigantic bowl of steel cut oats and my blood sugar would rise and then it would fall right back down to baseline and I would feel relatively good. Now, I don't spike my blood sugar massively a lot, but like you get to get away with more when you're healthier and leaner and you have more muscle mass. Another plus for building muscle is you can tolerate a lot more food. Like you become more of a sponge for carbohydrates. The more muscle you have, the more carbs you can eat and stay full. Like I interviewed a popular keto guy the other day named Ben Azadi. And what he does is he eats like really keto carnivore throughout the weekday. And then he has these really high carb days on the weekends where he eats rice and fruit and has hundreds of grams of carbohydrates and he used to have these spikes. And that tends to work for him. Like that's cool. My take is I think I like most people understand at this point that having adequate amount of protein is really a good idea to like base your eating plan around. Protein is good for satiety. You get the amino acids that are good for neurotransmitters. It helps you build and maintain muscle. And so if you can start to identify those select like really good protein foods for you and build your go-to meals around those, that's like a really foundational way to do it. So for me, the kind of foods that I love, eggs are phenomenal. I have a really clean plant-based protein powder that we make at Fit Father. I like wild fish like sardines and salmon. I also like fermented soy products like natto or tempeh. And I have my go-to protein sources that I build around. And those are just the ones I know work best for me. While other people might be throwing in chicken breast, ribeye, even pork. But you just got to identify those and start to build around those. That's great. And if each meal has around 30 to 50 grams of protein, and probably a little on the higher side, let's say 50, you're going to get around what you need through the day just by doing that. And I guess that kind of begs the thing of like, how many big meals do you have per day? And when is your meal timing schedule? Like this is foundational to our Fit Father approach. It's like, okay, let's look at your daily schedule. Let's decide when you're going to eat so we make it proactive. And we'll figure out your go-to meals typically for that first meal and maybe for like dinner. And we start to build around that. The carbohydrate containing foods, the complex carbs, rices, potatoes, pastas, is where you really need to exert a lot of awareness and figure out what works well for you. Like I know I could actually eat a lot of potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, and I feel fine. If I eat a lot of rice, I get bloated. Does this make rice a bad food? No. My family just went out to sushi last night. I absolutely had some, but I'm aware what those go-to carbohydrates are that particularly make me feel good. And I build around those the vast majority of the time. And this ends up leading to the experience of freedom. Oh, I know what the go-to meals are that make me feel amazing. And I can also like retrofit some stuff that works really well for our family. Like I can make my daughter Brooke like a really healthy mac and cheese with some grass-fed butter. I throw in some nutritional yeast, and like just make it like a healthier version. And she still gets to have the enjoyment of having a childhood where she eats mac and cheese. So a lot to say there. I think the veggies too, like I am a believer that eating colorful foods is good. So the colorful foods have these specialized compounds in them that make them colorful. Like the things that make carrots and peppers red are these vitamin A derivatives that are very good for health. The things that make blueberries blue and purple potatoes blue are very good for your health. So I try to eat a wide variety of colorful foods. I just pick the ones that work well for me. I know veggie wise, asparagus does great for me. Steamed broccoli or Romanesco or cauliflower works great for me. Salad greens work great for me. I know my fruits that I typically like, and some actually don't make me feel good. I don't feel great when I eat oranges and kiwis. That's weird. Just happens to be the case, but I don't eat as many of those as I do berries and pomegranates. So it's a self-discovery. And once you do that, the lines that you paint inside most of the time, and then you can transcend diet dogma. And I am generally at this point a believer of a lower carbohydrate approach for most people over 40. I would say at default, our Fit Father and Fit Mother approach to eating is around 100 to 150 grams of carbs a day. And some people might go a little lower if you cut the carbs out at dinner, but like that's balanced. That's easy. That's 400 to 500 calories worth of carbohydrates. And if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, that means that the vast majority of your other calories are coming from protein and healthy fats. Seems like a really good way. And if we look at the concept of like a Mediterranean diet, which is kind of a buzzword and of these kind of eating plans that are very well supported by the research, it's kind of like that. It's like a somewhat balanced plan that includes carbs and lots of healthy fats and some proteins from clean sources. Nothing is in excess. All of it is natural, healthy fats from those oils and the nuts and the seeds. So yeah, I fall in this more balanced approach to eating, but it's also personalized to me. And one thing we're great at doing at Fit Father is helping all of our people dial in their nutrition plan that works for them. So That's what I want to say. And Dean, I'm going to transition us to the next topic, but feel free to chime in if you had any other things to say here. But I do want to start to steer this nutrition conversation into brain health and cognitive health, because I think that's really a frontier where a lot of people are motivated by. Like, I don't want to just look good. I want to be super sharp. And there's stuff you can do with eating that really supports that. So, Dean, you can take it from brain health, and if you think anything about that, or follow up on the nutrition stuff I just shared.
I think it's great that you gave a lot of specific examples with the nutrition thing. So that was really nice, and I hope people try out those specific things and figure out what works for them. So I won't really add much to that because you're the expert there, and
Cool.
I think you nailed it. So
Awesome.
brain health, cognitive fitness. So I was thinking more about. I think we initially talked about. I'll turn over the nutrition side of this to you in a second. What I know about this, healthy fats for brain health. But in terms of what do you do to keep up your mental fitness, and the things that I would go to are, figuring out how you can work that into your day with habits that already exist. So, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I'm, we're both entrepreneurs. We get to decide what we do with our day a lot of the time. And so for me, that means that I like to choose the tasks where I find this concept of flow. So I love this book. It's called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
You
You
nailed
probably
it.
have to check my pronunciation. But it's an amazing book that details this, that goes through the details of this concept of flow, which is basically this state where we lose our sense of time. We're very immersed in whatever we're doing. It is the difficulty is a challenge for us that is just slightly above what our abilities are, but we still feel capable of doing it, right? So we feel challenged, but still capable. And it's something that is personally meaningful to us. I think there's like 6 or 7 qualifications of what makes something a flow activity.
Yeah.
But that means that for me, I try to make sure that the things that I do throughout the day involve me getting into flow, so that I can work on activities that challenge me, things that interest me, things that allow me to develop myself. Like, so for me, I write, right? I do a lot of writing, right? I don't know. You probably do a lot of writing too, right? You and we spend a lot of time in a Google document, right? Just looking at how do we make this sound as compelling as possible. Or we look at pages. We look at like sign up pages for events that we create or new programs that we create. And we're like, how do we make this look better? This looks a little complicated right now. How do we make this so that someone who's reading it doesn't get confused? So for me, those are the things that those are some examples of some things that I like doing where I'm pushing myself. But it's also very hard. It's also very hard to do that on a computer, because if you get, as soon as you reach a little bit of a, of a hiccup, or you reach a little bit of mental resistance, you're like, oh, just let me open up my YouTube tab again. Let me open up Facebook. Let me check my email. That's a good use of my time. And so having things like little blockers in place that prevent you from opening up new tabs, because most of us don't make the decision to open a new tab. It's automatic. And then like 30 seconds later, we're like, oh, how did I start watching this YouTube video? I don't even remember opening up YouTube. But if you have these little blockers in place, you can open up a new tab and it'll just shut it down immediately when you go to like a website like YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. So for me, it's doing the things, it's finding flow in my regular activities. And currently also Duolingo. I'm learning Italian right now. I'm going to Italy in a few months, and so my wife and I decided that we would learn Italian together on Duolingo, and that's a better alternative than a lot of the other stuff that you would do on your phone. So
Yeah.
that's what I do for brain health. I'll
I
turn it
love
over
that.
to you.
That makes total sense. I just want to plus on, it's really good to have some kind of fun learning thing that's not related to your work. Like, I am learning to get better at chess. It's been something I've loved since I was a kid, and I play a couple times a week, and that's really fun. I want to approach this cognitive health from a more physiologic standpoint. First off, like in terms of order of importance, you got to nail your sleep. Like sleep is the time when your brain literally cleans itself. The brain is this, let's just say this small, relatively small organ to your total body weight that takes up 20% of your daily energy needs. So just imagine how much metabolism is happening. And metabolism creates metabolic end products that need to be cleared out. Those brain cells need to rest. Good sleep is pivotal to that. So if you have some sleep issues, if you have unaddressed sleep apnea, which is often paired with being too heavy, like you're not going to feel cognitively sharp until you get that stuff kind of handled and find all ways to optimize your sleep, because even as someone
Have you
like me,
have you tried mouth tape yet?
I have not. I'm a good nose breather, but
Okay.
like just plus on the mouth tape for people because it's good.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say on
It
that?
worked.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. I had like some congestion one night and I was like, let me just try it. And Marissa said I didn't snore at all that night. So just like
Mm-hmm.
instant fix.
So if you're snoring, there's a very, very, very high chance you're breathing through your mouth. And there's also a good chance that you ate too much too late or eating foods that are creating some amount of mucus production or you're just
Yep.
overweight, right? So that combination of things is everything we've been talking about, identifying your good foods, cleaning it out, decreasing the mucus production, et cetera. Okay, so let's say that we have a couple of these aspects nailed. What creates the feeling of like a really sharp, clear brain? Well, it's an abundance of ATP and energy with great blood flow. Brain needs great blood flow. So, all the things that improve blood flow throughout the entire body, stuff that supports nitric oxide, stuff that actually vasodilates the brain, and I take specific things for that, is going to be amazing for cognitive function. We also need a shit ton of energy in the brain, which is ATP. A couple ways that are very practical to do that is taking creatine monohydrate in the morning, as much as 5 to 10 grams. Like you take 5 to 10 grams of creatine, it is uniquely shown to increase ATP in the brain. And if you have any kind of mental brain fog due to low sleep, it can help reverse or combat that. Now, that's not like a band-aid long-term solution, but it just proves the idea that the healthier you are metabolically, the more energy you have in the brain. This is also why you can check out the Fit Father YouTube channel. I've been doing a lot of training on like getting your micronutrients, particularly the B vitamins. All these B vitamins are necessary to take the food that you eat and actually transform that food into usable cellular energy, ATP. So when you get more B vitamins in your diet and you have a really healthy diet, the way I get my B vitamins through foods is through egg yolks. I eat a ton of egg yolks, maybe even up to 6 a day. I get a lot of nutritional yeast, which is Mother Nature's B vitamin. If you eat red meat, like high quality grass fed meats or organ meats, loaded with B vitamins, wild salmon sardines, loaded with B vitamins. So there's a lot of great sources of the Bs, but you want to make sure that you're getting micronutrients in. Now, you might be thinking, can I just take a multivitamin? Sure. Yeah, I think a multivitamin is like good. There are synthetic forms of some of these B vitamins that don't work as well as the natural concert from foods. But I think I just want to give you this piece of the puzzle that you want to make sure you're getting enough of these B vitamins for a good cognitive function. Now, one of the other huge aspects is when we feel tired, it's often we feel tired after a big meal because the digestive tract and the brain are kind of playing like tug of war with blood flow. When we have a huge meal, like Thanksgiving style meal, we have a couple pounds of like protein and other things sitting in the stomach to digest. The body diverts all that blood flow away from the brain to the GI tract, and we yawn as a result of this low oxygen condition in the brain. And so, anytime you want to be super sharp and clear, eat foods that make you feel super light. So like my morning breakfast right now, as crazy as it may sound, is this morning I had 6 raw eggs. I had this cacao drink that I'll share with you guys in just a little bit because it is a good cognitive booster. I put lion's mane, MCT oil, cacao powder in there, and I had a piece of fruit. Right, all super light stuff that helps me feel very, very sharp. So I eat light during the day, not a lot of digestive stress, giving myself a lot of these things for ATP. Now, a couple things. Like a lot of people have caffeine in the beginning of the day, and I'm not against that by any means. I am, instead of coffee or teas now, I am using cacao, which has a natural bit of caffeine. It may have like in the amount that I'm putting in terms of this raw organic cacao powder, maybe around 20 to 30 milligrams of caffeine. So less, even about a half what you might find in a strong green tea, and about maybe like a quarter of what you might find in a strong cup of coffee. So there's a little bit. But it also has some other mood boosters like theobromine that gives you this alertness without having the jitters. So I enjoy that. If you have too much caffeine, although you feel like you're kind of like dialed and locked in my opinion, with my body, and we all metabolize caffeine differently, I will get an energy crash later in the day. And I feel like I can't lock in that same like zen zoned in focus. I'm a little more frenetic. So I would say find the stimulant that works best for your brain. And kudos to Dave Asprey with his bulletproof stuff. It is pretty well shown that when you pair fats with that caffeine or whatever that stimulant you use is, it tends to slow down the release of that and give you a little more of a steady energy. Another thing that might be useful if you do like coffee in the morning is to take some L-theanine. L-theanine, 200 milligrams. We have a really high quality research proven one. There's actually clinical testing on it on our FitFather store. L-theanine, a chewable tablet, that really helps like calm down the brain and kind of keeps you into a little more of that flow state than those really frenetic beta waves. So that's something to consider. Then I guess like just getting the healthy fats, Dean, as you said, you want the omega-3s in your diet. MCT oil, I put that in my morning cacao because whether or not you're in a ketogenic diet, meaning you're in a very low carb state, MCTs cause your body to produce ketones, even if you're eating carbohydrates. And those ketones do burn really well for the brain and create a lot of cognitive function. And then one other specific supplement that I take that is like dirt cheap. You can find it on Amazon. It's called vinpocetine, Vinpocetine. It is the active compound in ginkgo biloba. Ginkgo is well, I guess people typically have been using the leaf for thousands of years, and they say it's good for the brain, and it certainly is, but it's actually vinpocetine that works. It increases blood flow to the brain. It's not a stimulant. You just take it and you feel a little more clear because it literally, when they do functional MRIs on the brain, increases blood flow. You can take 10 to 30 milligrams, these little just tiny discs. Again, dirt cheap, but anytime I want to be clear, I take the cacao with the lion's mane fruiting body, with the MCT, with some vinpocetine, and maybe a little bit of ghee or butter in there. And man, I'm rocking and rolling, very sharp and clean. So that is a little bit of stuff on brain and cognitive fitness. There's so much more that we could say here. This is an area where there are legitimate, like good supplements that can help, these nootropic supplements, like a good choline source. Choline is, if you eat egg yolks regularly, you're getting enough choline, but there's some supplements that have choline in them. A magnesium L-threonate is a magnesium that crosses the blood-brain barrier. That's cool. Like there's a huge rabbit hole that we can go down on cognitive supplements. But for me, I get my choline source, I get my omega-3s, I have my cacao, my lion's mane, my MCT, and my vinpocetine. And you can tell I'm cranking. I'm very, very sharp, sharpest I've ever been in my entire life because I've kind of dialed in my nutrition. So that's what we'll say there. And I think fasting is also a good tool as well. Whether you're on a complete like water fast or even just like eating light, which kind of feels in a sense like a fast, all that's good for cognitive function because you don't want to feel heavy in the GI tract if you want to be really sharp and clear. So, Dean, there's a lot of stuff online in terms of like different technologies and like biohacky stuff, like red lights, blue lights, green lights.
There's
different
green
recovery
lights
tools. There are green
Jesus.
lights. So like, what do you use any of that stuff? And like, what do you think, on that?
Man, I'm kind of simple. I've seen a lot of good stuff about red light therapy. From my understanding, in order for it to be effective, you have to use it very consistently, and it takes a couple months for it to start working. I haven't gotten into that yet, but I'd love to get 2 giant blocks and just stand here in my office naked and work that's my next idea. But honestly, something that I really like is a vibrating foam roller. That is
Nice.
like the thing that I use probably the most often in terms of tools, and the thing that I recommend the most to a lot of people, just because it takes like a full body 45-minute foam rolling session and turns it into like a 12-minute express route that
Nice.
you just feel amazing when you stand up from doing that. There's also, you and I have used this. There's a company in Austin called NewFit that does some pretty remarkable things using e-stim, but a continuous current, so that it helps with basically getting muscles to fire, and correcting some, if there's a lack of if there's a lack of muscle brain awareness, it can help with rebuilding those neural grooves, which is pretty cool. But then, I've got my sauna, I've got my cold plunge. I'm not doing my cold plunge right now, but I'm going to start it again soon. I love the sauna because I just love the way that I feel when I get out of the sauna.
Yeah,
I think also that sauna is also really good for your skin health. If you want
it
to
is
have
for
like
sure.
really bright, like glowing skin, then just get in a time machine and go back 50 years. But if you can't do that, then you could use a sauna. The sauna does, I feel like it makes my face look a lot cleaner. But those are the things that I like to use.
Yep.
So.
I'm with you. I think sauna's great. I think red light panels are great. I'm not as nearly as consistent as I'd like to be, but there's absolute benefit to that. The red light panels, the one I have right behind my camera here on my desk, actually puts out some UVB too. So it creates like a couple thousand IUs of vitamin D3 in like a 3-minute session. So if I'm not getting in the sun, that's cool. And I want to also do a plus in terms of the tech side of like using frequencies in your ears when you're working and trying to find flow. Like you can literally just go on
Mm,
YouTube and type like focus frequencies or like alpha frequencies or whatever. And like it's amazing how the brain responds to different sounds that we figured out work. So even just like sound, and it's free and accessible, can really help you like super lock in. It doesn't have to be all these external gadgets. And another thing, if you're not like if you feel like you're a person who's a little cheap and you don't want to spend a lot of money on a vibrating something or other, or a Theragun or some kind of thing, you can get like a car buffer, like a $30 car buffer off of Amazon. So surprisingly effective like body work tool, because it moves. You can use the edge. So I think some kind of, Dean and I were aligned on some kind of like recovery tool that has a vibration component to it is really great.
mm,
Um, let's go to our final thing, because I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I think we've talked a little about optimizing the home already. So I kind of just want to talk about practical mental health strategies that we use,
mm.
because all this physical stuff feeds into good mental health, but also good mental health is the soil through which we stay motivated to continue the physical stuff. And inevitably in life, we get knocked down and we fall into bouts of like a depressed mood, or maybe you're someone who's experienced on and off depression or mania for a whole bit of your life. So Dean and I, we both have a lot of experiences in improving our own mental health. So Dean, kick us off with some stuff that's practical that you actually do on a daily basis to feel more grounded and more happy and more focused, and to course correct anytime you feel like you're in a slump.
Yeah, so I'll just start this off by saying we had an event maybe a month ago, and it was just a yoga workshop and a little bit of wellness as well, but it really turned into more of a retreat feel, and I think that's because we went beyond just the physical health, and we really started talking about mental health. We had some people talk about some experience with depression, and we talked about the importance of taking time to be in this space of mental health. And one topic that came up was gratitude. Our brains are, we evolved. Our brains are focused on the threats. That is just how we are as human beings. We are naturally wired to look for the threat. Now, that's great to keep us alive, but in terms of like, living our best lives, if we're constantly focused on threats, then you're not going to spend a lot of your time being really happy. And so, in order to get out of that habit, we have to take time to deliberately and very consciously practice gratitude, or think
Mm-hmm.
about things that we already have, think about things that make us happy that we already have, rather than focusing on, oh, I don't have this yet, oh, this is coming up and I need to get ready because it could hurt my life somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So taking the time to practice gratitude regularly, and the way that I do that, because I told people this and they're like, I don't get it, I don't know how I would do it. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to say that in a way that is like, well, what do you mean you don't know how to do it? It's because it's so hard for you to get out of that thought process, that those patterns of focusing on the negative, and to start genuinely and authentically practicing gratitude, that it feels just like you don't know how to do it. And so here's what I do. I've been doing this every night for almost 2 years. I started this practice after my dog died, July 30th, 2023. So
Mm-hmm.
every night I sit down in some sort of comfortable position. Usually I'm resting against a couch of some sort. I'm cross-legged, but I'm comfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
then I start by checking with my body. All right. So
Mm-hmm.
I start noticing, where is there tension in my body? Oh, my shoulders are really tight right now. And then I try to draw some sort of parallel between where that tension is and a situation from that day that caused the tension. So if you practice this enough, you start to get the point where you feel like, shoulders, that's so tight. And then you're able to see, oh yeah, it's because this situation with this guy that I work with today was really stressful. And that's what that tension is. And so
Mm-hmm.
I start just by doing this body scan and noticing, what have I not processed from the day?
Yeah.
And then, and so I'm noticing, this is the stress. These are the things that were difficult today. But then I flip it. I think about, well, I am grateful that I actually I am grateful that I actually have the opportunity that is my stress, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I start to find ways. I start to think about the things that are causing me stress in a way that I'm grateful instead. So I think about, wow, it's so great that, I get to work on, these topics that are really interesting to me. Or, wow, it's so great that I have people who I get to work with to help me with this vision that I've created.
Mhm.
So you start to do that. Or let's say you are struggling with your partner. Let's say you're having some difficulty with that. Well, hey, how great is it that you have a partner, right? How great is it that you care about someone enough that you get to have this opportunity to fix this problem that you're having with right now. So usually I can find something to be grateful for even in things that are causing me the most stress. And
Mhm.
so I start specifically, listing things that I'm grateful for that are also causing me stress. And once I get the ball rolling, I'm able to move into this place of kind of authentic gratitude. And the things that I start saying, oh, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, it feels more natural. But it
Mhm.
does start from this place of grumpy, like, I don't want to practice gratitude. So, that is part of it. But then you're able to transition kind of into this place of gratitude. And you just feel the change. And so I do that every night. And I don't always feel like doing it, but I do it. I do it anyways because I know I'm going to feel better at the end of it. And then
Mhm.
the one other practice that I'll say that I really like that I talk to a lot of people about is this idea of a 3-breath habit. So whenever I notice that I am stressed, whenever I notice that I'm just moving too fast, that I'm not pausing, put my hand on my heart and I take 3 deep breaths. Right? Just
Yeah.
3 breaths. It takes 20 seconds, right?
Mhm.
But it shifts everything. So those are the things that I'd say probably have the most impact on my mental health strategies, and the things that are specifically geared toward mental health.
Something that occurred to me that's like really pretty profound is in the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about how to incorporate these different exercise practices into one. And we stumbled upon the idea of, oh, you can just use yoga as a warm up or a cool down into your workout, like making the workout unit have these different practices built into it. And now you're dynamic. I think all of creation is built off of units. It's like the body has cells that are units that get added up to become an organ that then serves a function. Like even the atom is a unit. And now you string enough atoms, enough carbon atoms together in the right arrangement, you have a diamond, you have carbon. And so I think the day for someone who wants to live healthy is the unit. The day is the unit that we have the opportunity every day to both be a part of, to be our flow, but also to like really master. And if that's the case, then how you start and how you end that day is going to set the tone for initiation energy and then processing and closure energy. And I think a lot of people are honestly way unintentional with this, and they're missing out on all this power of doing the simple things that you're doing here, Dean, is like having some tiny bookend with a discipline to process, to set the tone. And you just do that little thing. What actually happened is you primed your subconscious mind to to be in a more fertile state to process everything that you had throughout the day, to release a bit of that tension. And then the sleep time, when your dreams are a byproduct of all these patterns that are deep underneath your subconscious, they start to emerge. You actually have a productive evening. It's not surprising that some of the most prolific inventors and geniuses of the past all had some crazy evening ritual where they would seed their subconscious with creative ideas that they wanted to figure out, problem solving stuff they wanted to do, doing some kind of reflection about the day and what they did. So I just want to invite people during these times to really be intentional about weaving in the morning and the evening. Now, my version of this is I sit down for what I call meditation. And that can mean a whole bunch of things. Sometimes it's actually more like prayer. Other times it's just sitting peacefully in mindfulness meditation. It could even incorporate music sometimes, but it's an intentional time where I just allow the whole system to downshift, any feelings to come up, to be very intentional about the breathing. And what was really happening now, if we want to get practical into the science and the physiology, is that brain that is in those typically active beta waves where you feel like you have the chattery mind downshifts into those slower alpha waves where you can process more, you're more creative, you feel more connected. And then when you're sleeping and you're dreaming, it downshifts even more to theta waves. And just get how freaking poetic this is. The earth itself vibrates at something called the Schumann resonance, which is around 8 hertz, meaning a sine wave is completed 8 times per second, which is actually like not that fast. You could almost do it with your hand if you went like this as fast as you possibly could. Alpha waves are in that range. The brain, when it's resonating around 8 hertz, is in alpha waves. We are not meant to be frenetic, crazy, scattered. And so doing these practices to root us into the body is massive. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, because this processing that you might have, honestly, if you're being honest with yourself, from you had interesting childhood, you had certain kind of trauma, something tragic really happened, like it gets stored in your subconscious. It gets expressed in the tone of your nervous system, whether you're more sympathetic or parasympathetic, and it bubbles up as your triggers, which is ultimately, when you see this grand picture, an ability for you to process these deep things. And guess what? When you do process and heal the mental emotional side of things, it literally changes the expression of your DNA through this thing called epigenetics. So your genetics change and shift to promoting more healing compounds are produced, less inflammation. Your immune system is stronger. Autoimmune conditions emerge when people have severe trauma. Like the body literally shuts down, and then it expresses at a grosser level in terms of like metabolic or immune dysfunction. So this stuff must be addressed. And in fact, I think what happens a lot of times is people go on health journeys, they start to lose weight, build muscle, get healthier, but they don't address the deepest layers. They don't make that really deep, profound internal healing shift. And eventually a trigger blows them up, and then they fall off track and they have to go reset. So like the whole healing process has to be holistic. And it can be as simple as like daily small processing, and trust that it's all kind of unwinding within your process. I'm a kind of extreme guy. I now love that about myself, but I do some crazy stuff. Like I have gone on massive psychedelic journeys that have been insanely healing, bringing up deep stuff from my past that I've been able to process. Did 7 days in a pure darkness room in Mexico and processed my whole life, all my deviations and amazing things like this. So I'm down for the intensity too. If you haven't tried some of these modalities, you can look into that. There's a lot of options to do it safely. So those things are really good for mental health. And then the other thing I'll just say, like I'm a nature guy. I think when we get outside, we get sunshine on our bodies, we breathe through our nose with fresh air, we put our feet on some grass or even some dirt. If you live in Arizona like me, you start to feel more connected. Health is about connection. Stress is the antithesis of connection. It's when you feel like you're lacking resources, where you are lacking connection and support. And so anything that allows you to create more connection in your life, whether it's a gratitude practice or just getting outside, is the antidote to our stressed out modern culture that then compensates with unhealthy drugs and foods and behaviors. So I think we all get this picture. Like it is pretty clear once we see it. And now the opportunity we have is to help like navigate this field by ourselves, and then help those around us, our nuclear family, do well, and then our friends. And now we can create a healthier civilization society. And this will be a nice transition to say, hey, like you vibing with this, you like Dean and I, like come hang out with us in person. Like there is a certain amount of transmission that we can give you online and send you this way, but imagine being with us, give us a hug, meet us for 3 days, drop in deep. Like we're doing that in August. We have our event. It's over, I think it's Labor Day weekend in August. Someone from Dean's team, if possible, drop the Manflow link into the chat so people can see this, but like, come, we are doing 3 days. One on mental health, one on physical health, the other one on community and some of this deeper environmental stuff. Like you get to drop in with us and get this amazing transmission, and we get to support one another, because that's what it's all about. We have these bodies, we want to live healthy, and we can do it together. So I have super enjoyed this live stream. I hope you took a couple things from this. This was deep. I mean, this is definitely one of those live streams that's worth watching a couple times to really get some nuggets out of here. I found this to be super valuable and very fun. Dean, I always love learning from you. Anything you want to share in conclusion?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah. So I just, once again, I want to invite guys to come to the Fit Father live event in August. It's in Phoenix, August 29th to 31st. We're both going to be there. I think there is something that I've really discovered since, probably since it was during the pandemic. I launched a podcast called the Better Man Podcast. And one of the things that resulted from that is me realizing that connecting with people, and sharing my experiences in a way that other people can look at that and say, oh, I've gone through that too. It's good to know I'm not alone. That has been transformative. That has been a total game changer for me. Like I used to think that my superpower was creating yoga programs. I think that my superpower now is being able to explain a story in a way that relates to somebody. I think my vulnerability and being able to express that in a way that connects people is my superpower. And so I say that because community is something that is so helpful to this entire equation. So if you can come to an in-person event, you can talk with people, you can realize that, hey, you're not alone in your struggles, and that there are millions of other guys going through similar, if not identical situations that you are currently going through, have already gone through, or will go through eventually. That is extremely powerful. And that is not something that you should just overlook easily. So yeah, I just want to say, I think you guys would have a great time, and I want to invite you to that. So yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. And what you're building when you come in person is friendships that end up being a constant support system for you, a network of just more resiliency. Like, I'm a nature guy. You know, I said this again, but like the most robust ecosystems have diversity and connection. Like you look at like the redwood forest in Northern California, Washington, Oregon, those areas, like it is a neural network of trees and fungi all communicating, supporting. Like humans at our best, we are that. And today, internet gets us to a certain extent. You're here, you got value, you're feeling Dean and I, but like in person, man, we can drop in deep. And I think there's a transmission that happens there that's like truly life changing. Dean and I see it at our retreats, and this will be a really amazing time to come in. And we are bringing world class speakers, Dean included. We also have David Bayer, who is one of the best personal development guys on the planet, will be there. A bunch of other top doctors, a bunch of cool innovative health companies. So come hang out, check that out. Use the Manflow link as well. That would be the best way to sign up. You get a little bit of a deal on that. And that's all I have to share today.
cool. All right, guys. Well, we want to thank you again for joining. Thanks for your time. Hope you got something out of this. Again, this is all recorded, so feel free to watch it. Again, it's going to be on, let's see, we're on all the platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're in the members area. So yeah, this is showing up everywhere. So feel free to watch this again for more information. So yeah,
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dean. Love this. See everyone.
yeah.
Have a good day.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.